My name is Boo Walker, and I am in my office in the beautiful Cape Elizabeth, Maine, on what has been just a glorious day. It's like 82 degrees, and today's a big day. I'm really excited about my new one, The Stars Don't Lie. I was telling my wife we just walked over to Fort Williams Park to look at the lighthouse and walk the dogs and her friends in town, and I was telling her that this book is different, and they all should be. But this one, I felt a little bit nervous, a little bit raw today because I really put a lot into this one. I wrote it in first person, and to me, it's more heartwarming and heartwarming. How apropos, considering this is a book about a veterinarian. This is heartwarming and heartwarming, and I don't know. It's not a super complicated plot. It's not something where you're just gripping the pages, wondering who's going where. It's me just pouring my soul out and tapping into who I am, and also tapping into the characters. And so here I am putting it all out there, and I feel very raw and excited and very proud. And every book, I think, has its magic, and this one has this. Good. I'm glad everybody's saying it sounds good. Hi, Charlie from Sweden. I'm just really proud of this book. I wanted to write it for a long time, and I think for me, it's me saying I don't have to wow with a plot that is gonna grip you and twist you all around all the time. Sure, there's gonna be some surprises because I love surprises, but I think there is just a lot of humanity in this book, and it really hit me hard. And so I should say, for those of you who are new to me, new to follow me, and don't know anything about it, let me talk about The Stars Don't Lie for a little bit, and starting with the premise. And then just to give you an idea of what I was thinking we'd do today, I thought I would get into the process a little bit. I went to go see Celeste Ng last night speak, and it was really great, but she only teased a little bit about the technical stuff. And I know maybe that gets a little bit too inside baseball, but at the same time, I really dig it. And I think you guys want to hear more than what is talked about. I think, whether you're a writer or a reader, I think that part is really interesting, more so than me telling you my thoughts on, how to save the world, which I really don't have. And then we'll get into some questions, and then I've got some giveaways. I've got some audio and some signed books that I'd love to do. So everybody, crack open your beverage, and let's talk The Stars Don't Lie. So this book is about a Dr. Carver Livingston, and he's a veterinarian who has been living in Asheville, North Carolina, started his own practice, and has become uber successful. And he's sold a patent, and it basically doesn't ever have to work again. And the one thing that he's kind of buried and stays away from, cheers, is his past. And there is probably nothing in the whole world that would take him back to his little town in Vermont where he grew up, Teeterbury, which is a made-up town that I created. There's nothing that would take him back there. It's been 20 years. He's 40 years old. He hasn't been back since high school. Nothing that would take him back there except one thing. His mother calls, and she needs him, and his mother and father are having issues, and so he gets reeled back in. And it's the worst timing ever because it just so happens to be about the same time that his 20th high school reunion is happening. 20th or 19th, don't quote me on that. And they've been asking him to speak because he's become somewhat of a celebrity from afar, from Teeterbury, because he's been in the newspaper and stuff. And he is so absolutely reluctant, but when his mother says, "You come here now, I need you to help save my darn marriage, you owe this to me," what would we not do for our mothers? If my mother called me right now and said, "Get on a plane to Flat Rock, North Carolina," I'd be in the car in 5 minutes, And that was what it was going to take, and I thought long and hard about how to get Carver home, so I worked on that. Anyway, Carver his mission, should he choose to accept it, is to go home, save his parents' marriage, and get the hell out of Teterboro as fast as possible. But of course, it just doesn't work that way. He gets pulled back in, one thing after the other. And it was kind of funny. I don't think anybody from any of my classmates from St. Andrews Sewanee are on right now. But while I was writing this, I just so happened to be, they were trying to talk me into coming to my 20th high school reunion. I went to a great boarding school and have such good friends from boarding school in Sewanee, Tennessee. But I think I was in Spain at the moment. It was just a long journey, COVID and everything. But I watched it all go down, and I watched the head person in charge of the reunion trying, pleading to get everybody to come to the reunion. So I got to play off that a little bit, and I got to, more importantly, play off the idea of what it would be like to return home. I'm from Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I have not been back there in, it's probably been 20, 25 years. And the same for Sewanee. I haven't been back. And a lot of it is just because I kind of keep my focus on forward for some reason. And after my grandmother passed in Spartanburg, I don't really have any family there. But I got to kind of imagine what it would be like. And the first thing you think about is, God, when you were 16, 17, 18, a teenager in high school in your hometown, for those of you who have left and haven't been back in a while, first there's your best friends, and then there's your friends that you broke up with or that you had disagreements with. And then, of course, there's the women that broke your heart, or maybe you broke their heart, or the boys in the case of the women watching. And I just, I loved this idea of taking Carver home and getting pulled in. And most importantly, what really happens, what I think the story is about, is he reconnects with his English teacher. And I recorded a video recently, and I've talked a lot about this, but I'll be a little bit more brief. But the whole idea of the story, it was originally called "We Love You, Mrs. Cartwright," and the way this story came about, it was twofold. I have a mentor named Leela Meacham who passed just before I started writing, while I was pitching to my publisher, and she spent 5, 6, 7 years teaching me how to write. And she was an English teacher who became a famous author. And we had this serendipitous meeting, and we started connecting. And this was, for me, I was already making a living as an author, but still trying to find my footing. And she just was the greatest teacher in the world to me. And she reached out to me over and over, and she'd say, "Boo, what's going on? Send me what you're working on." And I'd say, "Well, how about this book?" And she'd say, No, send me a page or send me a paragraph. Hi, Stephanie. And she would just analyze it and talk to me, and we would go back and forth via email all the time. And then she was diagnosed with cancer, went to the hospital, and there's a beautiful picture of her on the internet with after she had radiation treatment. She had no hair, and she has this kind of headscarf on, and she has the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. It is enough to just bring you to tears looking at it, how strong she is. And the whole time that she was in the hospital, she would write me. I'd say, "So how are you doing? And also, how do you feel about framing a sentence this way? Or I know you hate dashes when I use dashes, but can I use dashes in this case?" And she'd write back and say, "Enough about me, I'm fine. Let's talk about dashes." And it was this back and forth. And then even in our last conversation, I knew she was reaching the end, and she wouldn't let me ask much about her health at all. It was just, let's get right down to the nitty gritty. Even we would talk on the phone, and she'd say, life is too short to, deal with these trivial discussions about how are things going and the weather. Let's jump right in, boo. And, it's like such classic teacher mode. And in our last emails, I wrote her and I said, "Leela, I want to write a book, and it's going to be called 'We Love You, Mrs. Cartwright,' and it's about you. It's what you've done to me. It's about teachers in general." And I just told her that, of course I need to give her some flaws, because Leela doesn't have flaws, and a book doesn't work if your character doesn't have flaws. So that started spinning around in my head of how am I going to do this? And then there was another piece that I think is pretty interesting that I want to share after I sip my Guinness. That's good. Hi, everybody. I love dashes, Judy says. She's very detail oriented. Yes. I wish I could have learned from her for 20 more years. So I think this is pretty interesting. So those of you who read The Singing Trees, there at one point there's Annalisa and Thomas. At one point there was also Thomas's point of view throughout nearly all of the book, and there's no big spoilers here. And if you haven't read The Singing Trees by now, you gotta get on it. It just hit 250,000 readers last week. But the problem with Thomas's point of view, and where I kind of ran into a roadblock, and my agent and I started chatting along with my publisher, is he goes to Vietnam. And was I going to write Vietnam scenes? I don't know. All of a sudden, it would have taken a really deep, dark turn. So what I ended up doing was I tried to skip Vietnam, and so Thomas's point of view fades away for a bit and then comes back later. And it just wasn't working, and Annalisa's voice was so powerful that we wanted to stick with that. But the other point of view that I was working on, right now it's kind of bookended with a present day scene with Annalisa and Mary, and at hospice, I believe. And then they look back, and then we experience the story, and then we jump back to the present at the end. So there's a bookended. What I originally had planned was a dual timeline. And I think I've always wanted to write a dual timeline, which I think I've successfully pulled off with my current book. But my mission was to write dual timeline with that. And it was about a guy named Carver. And I just had this image with The Singing Trees of this guy named Carver who looked a lot like, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to put an image in your head. Once you've read it, write me and I'll tell you who I was visualizing. But I saw this guy named Carver driving into Portland, Maine, and every mile that he got closer to Portland was just ripping his soul apart. He was terrified, and it was going to be a lot. And he was going to be Mary's, I think, son. So if you remember, Mary is the woman with the singing trees. I think her name's Mary. Forgive me, I changed it right at the last bit. But he was going to visit his mother and kind of go through what Carver's going through in this new book. And it just got a little complicated, and at some point you got to just settle down and not try to tackle too much. It was going to be dual timeline with Carver and his story and meeting this woman named Ava, and then he's revisiting also Mary's story and Annalisa's. And wouldn't it have been a different book if I'd done that? So anyway, this guy Carver kept sticking in my head. So Carver deleted completely. He's deleted from The Singing Trees. But I kept having this image of this guy, really uber successful, dreading returning home. And then I thought, okay, I could keep him going to Portland and go with this story. So I have Carver, and he's returning to the small town. And then I've got Mrs. Cartwright, who is based off Leela. And what in the world is happening? And then I thought, okay, I got to be careful, because though I wrote The Singing Trees in Maine, I wasn't living there at the time. And I have this curse, it seems, that when I set a book in the place that I live, right afterwards we end up leaving that place. And I was a little bit scared. So I thought, I'm not ready to set another one in Maine right now. Mr. Morrison, what's up, dude? Once a teacher, always a teacher. Hi, guys. So I started to think, well, I want to keep it in New England, because what's been really lovely lately since I moved from Spain last year, is my introduction to New England and so many quirky things. I love living in new places and learning, just learning the customs and learning the way people behave, learning about things I've never been in a snow climate before. So I've never shoveled snow really before and known what a snowblower did, or how, all these kinds of things, or how you leave your boots at the door. I mean, in New England, it's like Japan. Shoes go off at the door. That's like everybody in New England, I think. Every house that I go to, it's just almost customary, to the point where I should just put slippers for everybody at the door. But I wanted to include some of these beautiful quirks that I was learning about. snow dams, which are these, if your roof is not set right, I could be wrong about this. The snow will start to melt and then freeze again, and it start to melt and freeze again, and then it becomes this icy ledge that not only dangerous to drop down, but I think it's really bad for your roof. These are the kind of things that I just wanted to include in the story. So I thought, well, I haven't been to Vermont for a while. I love Vermont. I haven't said anything there since A Marriage Well Done. And I just happened to have met a really good friend named Christina and her mother Marietta, who live in Waterbury. And we thought, let's go check that out. So we stayed in Waterbury, and I thought it was perfect. We went to Montpelier. I always want to say Montpelier. And what I did is kind of combine the two, combine what I saw. And then I thought, well, I'm going to make up the town, because what I have learned is it is so much easier on my life if I make up the town. Because if I had tried to set it in Waterbury, somebody would have gotten mad at me. Matter of fact, I woke up this morning. I promised myself I wasn't going to say this, but I'm saying it anyway. I woke up this morning and I was just checking to see if any reviews were coming in for the new book. And one of them was talking about just the idea that this starts in Asheville, and that I had gotten some messed up on Asheville, and that I should have known it better if I'm going to set something there. And the truth is, I grew up really close to Asheville, went a lot, but I made up a couple things in Asheville. I made up a mountain where Carver lived called Coyote Mountain. And I think that's what the reviewer is talking about. And I was a little bit steamy this morning when I read that. Fuming, maybe you could even say. It took a little bit of meditation to calm down. And I get it. I totally, if somebody set a book in on my street and they got a few things wrong, I'd probably get upset. So lesson learned. However, it's my world, and that's what I ultimately decided. This is my Asheville, not your Asheville. And if I want Coyote Mountain, there's going to be a Coyote Mountain. And if I want to put a Central Park in Portland that is bigger than Central Park in Manhattan, I'm going to do that. Nevertheless, creating your own made-up towns just proves a lot easier. So there we are. That's The Stars Don't Lie. I'm going to try to not talk about it too much more. Does anybody have any questions? Stephanie says Stina, talking about my friend Christina. I'm just going to read this for a second. Hi, Judy. That's a powerful story. Pardon me, drink break. And then my dear friend Romo has joined from California. I have a bromance with my friend Romo, and he loved that I put Romo in the book, and I surprised him. I did it. He's always an ARC reader, and I did it without telling him, and I think he got a chuckle out of it. You'll find Romo in the book somewhere. I'm not going to tell you what happens to him. Let's see. So, I don't want to run out of time without talking about, we'll get to questions in a minute, but I want to talk about my method for a little bit, because like I mentioned, I saw Celeste Ng last night, and I saw Ann Patchett just 2 weeks ago probably speak. There's a bookstore called Print, owned by Richard Russo's daughter, and another person named Josh. Great bookstore, and they have been getting some really good speakers, good authors. But the only thing that I have to say is I just wait for some of the nuggets of like the inside baseball stuff about writing. Of course, because I'm a writer, and that's what interests me. But I would like to think that some of you guys want to hear some of that too. What I found interesting with Ann Patchett, when she went down that path, she discovered a treadmill desk. Surely you know who Ann Patchett is. Meryl Streep just narrated her last book. Tom Hanks, the one before that. She has a bookstore called Parnassus in Nashville. But she writes on a treadmill listening to Brain FM, which is a really cool station where they create this algorithmic kind of music that's supposed to increase your focus. But I just imagine Ann Patchett, walking on a treadmill and typing. I think it's really funny. But she does what I like to do, and I'll explain it in a second, which is she's finding ways to get her left brain off the board. And that, I think, is what makes me a better writer every day is the more I can learn which side to use when. I'm like in a mirror, so I can't. My right side is here. Um, so let's start from the beginning, maybe. Uh, it all comes from a couple of seeds, and actually that brings me to one other thing that was kind of important to The Stars Don't Lie, which are the stars. And just like with the singing trees, I had this story, I had all these guts and stuff. My friend at the time, I forgot exactly when, commented that she makes wind chimes, and that she had tons of them in the backyard. And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I have this beautiful story set in the 70s, and there's wind chimes, and I'm going to find a way to put them together because that's what I do. That's what I really enjoy. And with The Stars Don't Lie, I have everything that I mentioned. And then one day, last February, we've put up a fence now. We have a couple dogs, and now we can, in the snow, we can let the dogs out. But if you don't have a fence and you live in New England in the winter, you get up about 5 a.m. and you put leashes on and you put a jacket on and big boots and you go walking. And it's a doozy. However, but it'll wake you up better than coffee. But what I found, and I've lived quite a few places, is the stars in New England in the winter are unbelievable. And I just remember when I was kind of brainstorming and plotting the book, I walked outside one time with my dog Bandito. I don't think I had Tula yet, my Spanish water dog. But Bandito the husky and I went out walking, and I just looked up, and I was completely arrested by the sight. It was one of those. It was 4:30 in the morning maybe, and it looked like you could reach up and grab the stars. And it was such a profound moment for me. It was like being in church or like hearing a song that's changed your life for the first time. And I was so humbled, and like all my worries just fell away in a second. Like, I might have been in my head about this or that, and I had things going on in my life, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, everything is going to be all right. This is so beautiful. And there was something magical about the stars, which are so far away, but they're right here, and then how many planets there are around each star, and how many possible other life forms are out there. And I was floored, and I just went inside, and I texted my agent, Andrea, and I said, you know how the singing trees kind of work together with the wind chimes? The stars somehow needs to work with The Stars Don't Lie. So that's the way the right brain works for me. And that's the piece that I always am trying to harvest. And what I found is I never have a lot of stories to tell. But when I'm sitting down to find stories, there's always the amount that I need. So right now I'm pitching 3 books to my publisher. I don't have 4 stories right now. I tried a 4th, I didn't have it. And so that's when you just kind of trust in the universe, in God, in whatever you believe in, that the stories will be there. And it's kind of magical in that way. I find myself sometimes thinking, holy cow, you just did this and this. What's next? What if you run out of ideas? But you won't. That's like saying, what if there's an end to the stars out there? So once I have the story, I'm going to pause for a sec. I don't want to lose any of these questions. Did I ever get my guitar fixed that you got on the Seattle trip? I do have to answer that really quickly. That no one ever asked me that. Thank you so much for that question, Marilyn. The short of it, let's see, you can't see it. The second one over right there. I bought this guitar in Seattle that I thought was like the stars aligned for recently. When was that? Last summer. And paid a good bit of money for it. Got home in Boston at the airport, set it down while I was putting our stuff in the trunk of our car at the airport, and I just didn't see the guitar, and I set it right behind the car, and I ran over it. Did not even get it home. Cracked this beautiful neck on the guitar, and I called the builder and begged him, and I ended up sending it to him, and he fixed it, and now it has a story to tell, and it's got some beautiful marks on it. Let's see. So true about the stars. Yeah, it really is. And I know there's other places too in the world, especially if you don't have lights, but there's something about New England. It's like we're closer up here. Um, okay, so back to the method for a little bit. And I apologize if this is boring to you, but I really like talking about it. And I'm all alone all the time in here working, so you guys just bear with me. Um, so once I have kind of the basic idea, I start to develop the characters. And Celeste Ng was talking last night about how she develops her characters. She just starts writing and interviewing them. And I do something similar. Sometimes I'm racking my brain going, who is this Carver guy? What does he do? And I can pace the floors. But if you just start writing and stop thinking so much, your fingers move and there's some communication happening with your brain and it just comes out. And that's pretty darn fun. And so I started discovering Carver a little bit. I have a friend, Dr. John Pierce in St. Pete, who's a great veterinarian, who I called and said, "Can you help me if I dive into this? Because I want it to have some verisimilitude. I don't want it to be this poor attempt at." You love hearing about the method. Thanks, Christine. So I started to write all the characters, and once I have that, I create the setting, start to imagine things. I have a little whiteboard here to my left, and I might even draw out the town, draw a map of the town if I'm making it up. And then comes the really fun part to me. So I basically follow what Joseph Conrad originally put in, or Joseph Campbell, not John Joseph Conrad. Really, what he added to the creative game, which is the hero's journey. And then a guy named Christopher Vogler wrote a book called The Writer's Journey, which distilled down Joseph Campbell's idea of the hero's journey into something more easily readable. And then after that, a guy named Blake Snyder wrote a book for screenwriters called Save the Cat. And he took what Christopher Vogler wrote and distilled it down even more. And basically, it's just the idea of, what is a story? A story is about a flawed character who goes out to get something, and in the process of either getting it or not getting it, grows a little bit or doesn't grow. That's what a story is. And the idea of the hero's journey is, you've got this hero who's living this life of chaos, let's say, and then something smacks him on the head. Something lands in his life. A letter comes. Somebody knocks on his door. Something that, as soon as he opens that letter or opens the door, his or her life is not going to be the same. And that's a really important beat in a story. And then there's a moment of, let's say if this character, someone has written him and said, "I need your help in South America. Will you please come save me?" There's a moment once he gets the letter of, will I do it or will I not? And then after that, you break into Act 2 when this character decides, all right, I'm going to South America. Act 2 is the journey. This is like Alice in Wonderland goes down the rabbit hole. Act 2 is where it's the majority of the book. It's where the character steps into the cave and faces the demons and goes after what they want and runs into obstacles. By the end of Act 2, they're usually dragging in the dirt and really struggling. And then my favorite part ever to write, and I really enjoyed this one in particular, is when the character reaches the dark night of the soul, which is, they've accepted this challenge, they've gone on this mission, they're going after what they want, they're close, they don't get it, and then wham, they're not going to get it. This is bad news. This is when characters reach for a bottle of booze or a knife, or they go for a long walk and want to give up. But then something happens that snaps them out of it, that wake up. And that's what leads to Act 3. That's what leads to redemption. And Act 3 is about coming to grips with what's going on in their heart and soul, their struggles, but also, let's say if this person is in South America to save their friend, they now have the tools they need to go save their friend. So Act 3 is about all this resolution, tying up the loose knots. So I always have that in my head. If you, it sounds kind of formulaic, but every story has this. Almost every 99% of all stories have this at the core of them. And I just always sit back and I think, okay, what is Carver? Where is he in Act One? And what's going to get him to Act Two? And I talked about that earlier. Well, for him to go back to Teeterberry, it's going to be his mom asking for help. And so that's the big moment that changes him. So it goes Teeterberry, Act Two, and I won't go any farther. But that's where I start from there is I use this software program called Scrivener, and I kind of beat out an outline. And the outline is totally flexible. I can change it at any time. It's not very detailed at all, but it at least has 8, 10, 15 beats. And then I might add a few other scenes that I imagine. And so then once I have in Scrivener, it's this great, on the left side in this column, I can have all my characters listed, and in each character I click on it, there's a detail of who they are, maybe even a picture I found on the internet of what I imagine them looking like. And then I have this outline, and then I have settings, maybe with pictures or descriptions. And then that is the left part of the brain probably working with the right. But then what I try to do, let's see, I'm gonna get to some questions in a second. Then the hardest part of the whole thing comes about, which is I have the story, I have the characters, now I've got to put flesh on the bones. And that to me is all about right brain, pure creativity, letting go of everything. So the way that I do that is I have my outline and I say, okay, well, I know that Carver is going to go from here to there. And I have kind of an idea of who he is as a person and all these kinds of things. And then I sit down and I've got a Pomodoro timer and I say, I'm going to do 25 minutes without stopping, burning through typing. I'm just going to let my fingers and my right brain just go. And I just step into this world. And the reason that I say it's really hard is because it's like finding your way in the dark. It's like the lights go out and you've got to get out of a house. But I just say, boo, get 3,000 words down a day every morning. And then I can go out and play. I can go have a great day. So the good part about that is I can start at 6 in the morning and be done at 9. And then I can just go read and walk and just have a day with my family and stuff. But the hard part is that you've got to really tap in and you got to get out of your own way. And I find for me, that's by really fast typing. And once I do some good, proper fast typing for 100,000 words, I've got a mess of a story. I mean, if you read it, you would be like, how does this guy make a living as a writer? This is terrible. Other than a few days where I'm super plugged in. But what I do have is I've got something to work with, you know? And that's all that matters. So then I go back and I just start rewriting from the beginning. I might copy and paste and save a few paragraphs here and there, but essentially I'm rewriting, cleaning things up, making it pretty. Sometimes I'm writing and Carver, I just keep using Carver. Carver pulls into town and goes into this building and I just don't see the details in my head. So I just say, he goes into the white building and moves along. And then later I'll say, there was a fireplace on the right side crackling going out and there's some music playing and I start to see it later and I bring out the details. But at first I'm just getting the bones. So from there, I have something to work with and I start sharing it with some of my closest cohorts, my agent and my wife and my beta reading team. And we start talking about problems and start cleaning it up. And it really is like, eventually you've addressed every paragraph so many times that this is exactly how it needs to be. And, with a team, it really, really works well. So I'm with my current WIP, my work in progress, I'm about to go to my developmental editor after all that. And she and I will work together for 2 months, then send it to a copy editor. Then it goes to the proofreader. And then we've got another book next August. So let me look at some questions here. Thank you for listening to that. I'm soaking this up. Good. As you can see, I really love it. I'm passionate about it. It's what I do all the time. I love reading books about it. I love talking about it. I love to see that my mom is here. This makes me so happy. And she's got a picture of my son as her profile picture. Hi, Joanne Walker. Love it. I would come home for you in a second if you told me to. I love your explanation of the 3-act structure. Thank you, Maureen. Yeah, I really think it's important to follow a structure. I mean, at some point you can start to deviate, and I find myself now, as this is my 11th book. I know that I can start breaking rules a little bit, but I know exactly why I'm breaking the rules and how I'm going to bend them, and then come back to them. My book would, Leslie says, my book would never get finished because I would be constantly changing the story and adding things. Yeah, you really have to pick and choose, and at some point it's got to end. Yeah, so Maureen, that's right. So I try to write fast, and sometimes some days I see things so clearly, and I'm like, oh my God, I can feel my fingers moving, and things are really working out, and I know I'm not going to have to really clean this passage up, and it'll survive the whole year of drafts and stuff. But other times it really is like the girl in the white dress. I can't really see her face. Did this. Fill in later. Christy says, I love the first person point of view. Will we see more in the future? I hadn't done that since Margot and A Marriage Well Done. And yeah, I like playing with everything, as you guys would probably tell who've read my books. I had always wanted to do first person because of Nelson DeMille's Plum Island, which got me into the game and made me fall in love with writing. And it worked sometimes, and in this particular story, it really brought me in more. And I think that's what I was mentioning earlier. First person felt right because Carver is not me, but I can understand Carver and I can get into his head. We're the same age. We're going through similar things. And I thought that first person just would bring it more real. And aside from that, I just hadn't done it in a while, and I love changing it up. Like I wrote the current work in progress in first person, or I'm sorry, in present tense. Half of it is in present tense, which was a ball too. I think it keeps it fresh for me. It keeps tricking my mind, keeps my right mind just flowing, and I would like to think that it's fun for you guys. I don't want to ever fall into formulaic writing. It would be boring. I mean, it's a lot to take on new challenges, but it also makes me a better writer, and you never know. And I've got some surprises coming up that are going to shock you. It's not horror, though. I'm not writing any horror. Do I prefer writing male or female characters, and why? That is a great question. Not for some reason. I somehow am pulling off writing female characters, and I really like it, and it's because I have a beta reading team made of mostly women who have been training me over the years and continue to do so and read my early drafts, and they smack my hand and say, are you kidding me? Charlie would not do that, or Sarah would not do that, or this sounds like such a Visigoth male thing to say. Get it out of there. And I've heard that enough to where I think I'm getting better and better. And I really do enjoy writing from a female perspective. It's just nice to get totally away from me, to get me out of it and see characters for who they are with only a little piece of me inside of them, Let's see. All right, last question, then I'll jump into the next thing. Is 3,000 words your daily goal? I have 10,000 almost 1 year later, but I wrote 2,100 this morning because of some personal things I'm going through. So when I'm writing the first draft, 3,000 is my goal. So I can, unless I run into a big snag at the midpoint, I can get a book down pretty quickly. 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, but then it all changes because then I slow it all down and I start working on specific things. So at that point, I switch. Once I get my first draft down with the 3,000 words, this is a great question. Once I get my draft down with 3,000 words a day, it switches more to hours a day. And I try to get in 3 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours of highly focused Pomodoro timer timed social media cutoff every email off, music really loud, and full on focus. If I can do that for 2 or 3 hours a day, I could definitely spit out a book or two a year. And I think you can too. It really, so much of this, the hardest part of being a writer is, like I said, just getting out of your own way. You know, I can, in an hour and a half, I can type 3,000 words if I'm just flying. And the only thing keeping us from flying is us overthinking and going, hold on, I should have said that, or I should have said that. But to me, that part is done later. You know, should that be in parentheses, or, you know, I'd like to do that later. Hi, Andrea, my amazing agent. Let's see. I want to just check my agenda because we're going to go for a few more minutes. I think I've covered the method. Yeah, cool. Let's keep with some questions for a few more minutes. I like this, and then we'll do a giveaway, and then I'm going to say goodnight and go enjoy a celebration with my family. I'm enjoying this so much. Your writing style is so good. You really embrace the characters. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. I appreciate all that you do for me. Donna asks, which of your characters is your favorite and why? Which of the characters is my favorite and why? I think there was a moment when Annalisa clicked for me in the Singing Trees. And it was, I don't even think I've mentioned this before, but I was watching The Marvelous Miss Maisel, and Annalisa was very alive in my head, except for the way she spoke. And all of a sudden, as I was watching The Marvelous Miss Maisel, the way she spoke started to seep in and meld with Annalisa's Italian-American snarkiness. And when that happened, Annalisa was so real. Like, I still think about her like I could probably have a conversation with her. It would be kind of embarrassing with you guys watching, but she's one of my favorite characters, and probably why it's resonated with so many people because of that. Let's see. It's like having your favorite child. Yeah, it kind of is, but there's ones that you certainly. There was a question somebody sent in. Where is it? Ruth asked, do you personally revisit your characters from time to time, or are you able to put them away after you've completed a project? Aside from Red Mountain, do these characters spark new ideas for different stories? Well, yeah, you're right. So most characters, when I'm finished with the book and I submit it for the last time to my publisher, it feels like I've done what I've said goodbye to them. Like, thank you for being in my life. And now it's time for us to separate. Red Mountain, not a chance. I'm watching, I've been consuming Yellowstone and 1883 and 1923, and I just love Taylor Sheridan. I love how he's writing in this world in the West, and the Duttons and Yellowstone Ranch, and how he can go back 100 years and then, even longer, and he could probably jump into the future as well. I love that, and I see this with Red Mountain. Like, I not only feel who they are, but I feel the other characters that are coming to Red Mountain, and I can even see the characters that were in the past. So I think you know it when there's, books that are with characters that are supposed to last a lifetime, and that's why I certainly keep Fourth Red Mountain on my mind at all times. Let's see. There was a couple of others sent in earlier. Tony asked, how many hours a day do you write? I think we got to that, and she said, do you eat boiled peanuts? Now, that is a question. I am obsessed with boiled peanuts. However, you can't get them up here, and I tried ordering canned ones from Amazon, and it was a disaster. So the only time I've had them is when my oldest friend, who I grew up next to, Kevin Cole, brought up some boiled peanuts in his luggage last year. And it was the best in the world. What did I think of the Marvelous Miss Maisel? I just adored it. I haven't seen the last season because my wife was really down on it. I probably still need to watch it. I've been just pulled in by Taylor Sheridan. Let's see. I think the final thing before we jump into some giveaways is I did want to mention, just tease out a few things. So I do have some works in progress. The one that I'm wrapping up that will be done in the next couple of months is super exciting and goes to England. You saw me mentioning Winchester, England, and it's about a woman. It's a woman's female point of view who goes to England to reconcile some bad deeds done in her family years before. Other than that, I have 3 other stories that have been pitched to my publisher, and I'm super excited about. And I just, where they keep coming, I'll just never let that stop. I'm so grateful because these 3 are, I just felt like a kid today working on this secret project that I hope maybe will come out next year. I just felt like a little boy in a playground, and as long as that keeps happening, it's great. So I really appreciate you guys and letting me do this for a living, and you reading and supporting and coming to hang out with me on a Tuesday night and celebrating the release of my book and sharing on social media and doing everything that you do. It really means a lot. This is a lonely business sometimes, and self-doubt can try to sneak its ugly head in. And when you send me notes, and I know that I'm helping maybe a few people get through everyday life and get through some struggles, it means a lot, and I'll just keep doing it till the day they put me in the ground, which I hope is a long way away because I got a lot of stories to tell. I want to give away some audio. So I have a MP3 audio and CDs, and so I'm going to give away one of each. And if you would just, okay, I got you, Lucretia, I will do that. All you have to do is just put in whether you would like MP3 or CDs, 6 CDs, or this MP3. You have to have an MP3 player. A lot of cars have it, or a computer. Great narrator. Oh my God. He has done some huge books. So I'm really excited. I haven't heard the whole thing. It's a little tough for me to hear because every time I hear my book narrated, I just want to change every sentence. So but I know that it's really good. I've listened to enough to where I'm just beyond honored and humbled that I get such good narrators, and my publisher does that for me. So just put in MP3 or CDs, and I'll look through later today, and I'm just going to pick at random. So let's do that for a second. And then I would like to give away some books, but I'm going to give you about 20 seconds, and I'm going to sip on this Guinness that's sadly still full. Lots of CDs. So if you put MP3, you have a much better chance. Oh, and all my favorite people are saying CDs. How do I decide? This is not fair. There is my friend Liz. I'm glad you're here. She is the wind chime woman who helped me make the singing trees what it is. And Stephanie, my friend and my son's former teacher, who is just an unbelievable person. So many good people here. My mother and Lucretia asked about the cover. When I first saw it, I thought that looked like North Carolina, and what it needed to look like is Vermont. But what I found is that when I went to Waterbury, it is uncanny how similar Vermont is to Western North Carolina and the Asheville area. The way the mountains roll, it's almost like the Blue Ridge is up in Vermont. And ultimately, I think the cover captures the idea of this book, and I don't want to spoil it, but it really is, to me, sometimes I get caught in the nitty gritty. I get caught in, thinking about these small details in life. We all do, things that we worry about. And all it takes, it seems so simple and almost childish. Sometimes all it takes is looking up and seeing this huge expanse and remembering how magical the universe is and how small we are, but how connected we are. And sometimes it just shakes us out of our little cage that we've been living in. And that's what this book is about. And I thought, when my publisher sent the cover, I just thought that's it, guys. And wherever we are, we can find the stars, and that's kind of a beautiful thing too. All right, I'm going to give away. If you didn't see the hardback, this is such beautiful. book, and then a paperback. And this one's going to be a little different. I'm going to surprise you. I want you to, in the comments, write who your favorite author other than me is currently. And if you say Louise Penny, you're going to be in the vast majority. Holy moly, she's popular. Let's see what everybody says. And I'll personalize these to whoever wins as well. Uh-oh, nobody's commenting with their favorite author. Carolyn Brown. I've not read Carolyn Brown, but I hear really good things. Ooh, now you're coming in. Pat Conroy, Lucretia, I'm right there with you. You can't see it, but on the wall, my wife, just before Pat died, my wife stood in a long line in Charleston with a copy of his latest book, and he wrote the greatest inscription ever. It says, "Taboo, who has great taste in women, write deeper, always write deeper." And I think about it all the time. And sometimes I'm accused of oversharing or just, maybe showing a little bit too much of my freak flag. And I remember what he wrote, and I think that's what being a writer is all about. That if you can't lay it out on the line, then you're being afraid. And what does Hemingway say? Writing's easy. You just cut your wrist and bleed onto the page. That's how I feel. And, if somebody's got a problem with it, what do you do? A signed book is an option, Teresa. That's right. Just give me your favorite author. Let's see who else is in here. This is fun. I'm going to go buy some. Getting harder and harder to find the stars with light pollution. I know. That's why we all need to go to northern Maine now. Karen Russell. I don't know her. Nicholas Sparks. I've never heard of Nicholas Sparks. Just kidding. Kristen Hanna, I'm right there with you. The last two have not been my ultimate favorites, but of course the Nightingale goes down as one of the tops of all time. Jeff Tweedy, what? I love Jeff Tweedy, and I want to read his new book. He is so good. Diana Gabaldon, never heard of her. Is that Outlander person? God, I'm feeling frisky. Kay Bratt, I know Kay Bratt. Colleen Hoover, she's taken over the world. John Lehman, your father, that's cool. Leela, absolutely. Nora Roberts. I've got a Nora Roberts that my friend Lucy Score has told me that I have to read. And I would love it if I could just see it and tell you what it is. I don't see it. I thought it was on my shelf. Michael Connolly, I've read tons of his stuff. Agreed. David Sedaris, superb. Jay Jantz, John Green, Bob Goff, Adriana Trigiani. I know that one. Kristen Harmel. Yes. Okay. So I will track you guys down, and I'll post here or message you or something and ask for your addresses. Best of luck. I am going to go downstairs and find my beautiful wife and son and go celebrate a little bit. And once again, I cannot thank you enough. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. And you guys that take the time to be right here are my support group and the ones who share the word. And please don't stop, and I won't stop either. Okay. Bye, guys.